I am so excited to introduce our community today to Dr. Teresa Pangan. And fun little side note, she had joined me years and years ago on gratitude. And today we're going to talk stress management. But Teresa's mission is to help people feel better and get more out of their lives with easy stress reducing and positive mindset practices. So get ready for all things mindset. We're actually going to make this into a two-part series, and we're going to really tackle stress management today. And then in part two, we'll handle more of the food and the nutrition. So welcome back, Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to be here, Lindsay.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see you again. I feel like I need to tell my audience that you were my first coach, my first time going. I think I need somebody, and it's time for me to put money on the table and expedite my process into my private practice. And ever since you and I worked together, I always had a coach because you showed me this beautiful other side of this is what it means to be supported and handheld through our process. So just thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I'm so happy for you. You're impacting so many lives with all that you share and do in the world.
Thank you. And speaking of impacting lives and sharing, you have really niched over into this stress management world. We're both dietitians. I would love for you to tell our listeners today, like, how did you jump ship? Or maybe you didn't jump ship. Maybe this has just been a very natural progression over into stress management.
Sure. As part of my work at a medical center, I do a variety of things. But one thing I do is I give the stress management, healthy mindset workshops for the intensive cardiac rehab. So over the years, I have seen how stress is a major part of health. I've seen patients that have had cardiac events, and stress is a major factor. And you see statistics out there, 70 to 90% of visits to primary doctors involve stress. And so I've been giving these workshops and seen it not only in the patients, but in my own kids. I have 4 kids, and throughout their development, I've seen stress at play, my own life, in patients that I've individual kind of clients that I've worked with. And it's such a pronounced part of how we move forward. And I've seen people that move forward and then they get stuck and kind of fall back a little bit. And it appears, I mean, we don't have a way of knowing for sure. It appears that stress is a major factor in many cases of people just not able to really jump forward. I wanted to tackle it a little deeper, and I've really embraced it. And I just think it's such an important thing. And it's one of those foundational things in our health that I'd like to see out there more loudly.
I love this. And speaking of foundational, when we were going to initially start this two-part series, I was thinking, let's start with the nutrition and the fitness piece, and then we'll talk stress. And then I'm like, no, it's the piece that gets a little brushed under the rug sometimes, or I'll worry about that piece later. I'll dive into a health club before I'll dive into thinking about my stress levels. So I love that you have found a fine focus here. And that's why I want to make sure that we lay this beautiful groundwork with stress management and mindset, so that we can also carry this over into all those other facets of our life. You had said, when I give presentations on stress and stress management, I debunk the beliefs people have so they change their mindset so that it will better serve their goals. So can you kind of give us, what does that debunk part look like?
Well, there's actually several things. First of all, understanding our stress response and why it's hurting our health, and separate from some of the cultural messages out there, kind of get a better handle on it. There's been many people before have done a great job of kind of breaking it down, but there's one kind of model that looks at stress response as 1, 2, 3 phase. And I go through that in a simple fashion so that people really grasp it. And then we talk about why it's really hurting ourselves and what we can do about it, because there's some easy solutions. And then at the same time, there's that whole mindset piece. So there's the stress that's in our lives that we can't escape. And we need to do some things, have intentionally some activities, whether you want to call them self-care, stress management. But then also there's a piece that we can actually harness the power of stress to help us pursue our goals even more powerfully. There's those two arms. And that's a big thing. A lot of people have heard of good stress, eustress, and that's been around for 2 decades, maybe so, the research, and it's getting out there more commonplace. And that's really good. And that's an easy way of addressing, harnessing some of the power of stress. But there's even some newer research out of Stanford by a researcher, Aaliyah Crum. She's really looked a little step further of harnessing how we can make stress make us stronger and powerful, because there's thinking that maybe our wiring at one time, the stress really helped us be super powerful. Where would you like to start?
I know. I think the 1, 2, 3 just shouted at me for a second because I would like to hear what that even means.
Okay. When I'm talking to people, I will go into a little story about the tiger. So you probably heard that our stress response, the wiring kind of dates back to roaming in Asia with the Bengal tiger, something like that. Let's use our imagination. Let's just pretend we're waking up. Here we're going out to get our breakfast because, of course, we don't have a refrigerator back hundreds of thousands of years. And so we're just gathering. We don't have an AirPods in. We're just listening to the birds. And all of a sudden we hear a little rustling of the bushes, and we know from our wiring that we need to pay attention. So we turn slowly and we notice that 7 feet away, we've got a 350 wimpy pound Bengal tiger. We don't have any leash. We don't have any fence. It's just us and the tiger and maybe a few branches. The first thing that typically happens is we can't stop it. Our body goes, if you're not able to see the screen, I kind of did the scared, you're watching the Scream movie and that kind of look. Right then, when you see that tiger, then your body goes in cascade. You can't stop it. It's just programmed to all kinds of things. You hear things like your cortisol level goes up, your glycogen from your muscles is shunted into your bloodstream so that you can run for your life. Or if those berries that you started to eat, the digestion stop because you don't need to continue digesting when you've got a few more seconds of your life left. Your immune system kind of dampens down too because you got no viruses. Your blood pressure goes up. And there's a whole bunch of things that happen that your body is actually wired to do really wonderfully to get ready to run or fight the tiger. I am going to go with running. I'm not going to fight the tiger, so I'm going to run. I'm going to use some of that glycogen that's now glucose and run as fast as I can. There's 2 outcomes that can happen at this point with the Bengal tiger on my heel. What would those be, Lindsay? What would those outcomes be?
I get eaten?
Yes.
I die? Or I make it somehow. I don't know.
Yes. Truthfully, I probably wouldn't outrun a Bengal tiger. I am not fast. And we probably didn't. Probably what happened more likely is somebody in our tribe saw us and got involved and motioned to us and somehow distracted the tiger or had us come over to their cave hut, treehouse, whatever it was. We got to safety because of somebody else in the tribe. Phase 1 was when we got that scream kind of response, everything cascaded into motion. Phase 2 is when we're running or fighting. And then now we're shifting into phase 3 where we're safe. Somebody just saved our life. At that point, I've got all this stuff circulating in my body. Probably what I did at that point is with whoever saved me was responsible for distracting. I probably went up and gave them a really big hug, like, held them tight, bear hug kind of thing. I might have cried because I had all that emotion going on. I might have laughed just hilariously. I might have done a little dance. If we were 2 10-year-old boys, we probably would have wrestled on the ground. And we probably would have gone to the community dinner that night and shared our great story and danced and celebrated. And all this celebration, or in this phase 3, is about telling your body you're safe. All these things that were pumped up can now come down to their foundational healthy level. So that's kind of the cycle 1, 2, 3. What's happening is now in the 21st century, we don't have tigers, of course, but we do have things that trigger our fight or flight or the stress response. And they can be things, they're external things like your boss or traffic or a bill coming through, or a headline that triggers you that's important to you. Or it can be something internal, something that you're berating yourself, that you're down on yourself, that you're judging yourself. Or it can be perfection, where you can't relax until something's just perfect. Or maybe you have struggle with uncertainty. When things don't go as planned, you have trouble relaxing. Those are internal. All those things can trigger the stress response. Once it's triggered, you've got all these things happening. The problem is these are happening all throughout the day, over and over and over and over. And we're not getting a chance to bring them down to a safe, healthy foundational level. We've got these things circulating that are up, and over time, that's what contributes to chronic diseases. We want to learn to tell our bodies we're safe, in a sense, is one solution of looking at this. And research has found what tells our body it's safe, kind of brings down the blood pressure. And if you want to get into triggering the parasympathetic nervous system on the vagus nerve, that's what a lot of talk around this is. The sympathetic is what initiates this whole stress response, the fight or flight. And then parasympathetic is when you're relaxed and things are back down kind of at a good lower blood pressure, heart rate variability. Those kind of things are typically measured then for parasympathetic. Research shows, no surprise here, movement. Movement really helps. And movement is probably my first go-to out of all like 6 all name. It makes sense. And it's good for us for a gazillion 700 plus reasons. They say movement about 30 minutes a day. If we could do that for our 21st century lifestyles, that would be great. When I talk to people, I really encourage them as much as you can daily activity. I'm not saying don't wait till the weekend, but we want our bodies to come back to that safe level. So we need to be doing this regularly. That's one. Another one is having something that you love to do, a hobby, an interest, something that you're not getting stressed over. You don't have these high expectations that you're getting wrapped up in. It's just things you enjoy. A lot of times it's things like art, painting, drawing, and you don't have to be good at it. Just lose yourself in it. Requirements are that you lose track of time and that you love doing it. So you just feel that connectedness to the activity. So it can be playing an instrument is awesome. And a lot of the activities that seem to do really well move the body, but maybe in smaller motions, like piano playing. Again, you don't have to be good. Another instrument. It can be listening to music that you actually listen to, that it's not just in the background, that you sit there and you just like almost close your eyes and go, oh, I can feel that. You feel it in the body. The point is, this is processing in the body. So you've got to shift it from the head down to the body. I've had people say, is it playing with grandkids? Well, yes, if you love doing that. So if you really lose yourself and you're connected and you're present with it, but if you're checking your phone, that's not going to work. So it could be crocheting, sewing. My daughter just got into sewing. I just love it. Nail painting. Okay. Just whatever. So that you don't get stressed by it. You're not putting these rigorous kind of expectations of getting you stressed, but you enjoy it. So there's just a whole wealth. It can be woodworking, working on your car. It can be cleaning. It can be gardening, organizing. Some people, the requirement is that you lose yourself in it. You love it. Another thing. So I usually encourage people to at least do 10 minutes a day of that. That would be in the ideal, in addition to the 30 minutes of some type of movement. Other things you can do are laughing. I mean, belly laugh, not belly laugh really helps. Crying, just really crying. I had a close loved one pass away in the recent past, and I wasn't able to take time away from work. But what I made sure was I went walking for 30 minutes every single day, a full 30 minutes, I made sure during that period. I also had a friend that came over and I said, hey, here's the thing. I would love to give you a hug, and I'm going to give you a 20-second hug. You don't have to count, but you have to give a real hug. It's the kind of touch that the hormones then start. You could do a kiss if there's somebody that that you're comfortable doing that with. And it has to be a 6-second kiss, is what the research says. I haven't tried that one out, but so that kind of physical touch that really does help a lot. These are wonderful things that are built into our DNA, so to speak, our wiring, that really help tell our bodies that we're safe now. You can come down to the grounded, safe level. And the other thing is being out in nature too. Being out in nature, there's just something magical about just taking in the leaves. Right now, I can see out my window the change in the leaf color being fall, just really taking it in. So I encourage people, when I speak to some audiences and groups of patients that have mobility issues, maybe, that even sitting on your front porch and just taking in the Mother Nature, or even sitting in your front window when the first snow falls and just watching it. Spend 10 minutes watching it. Mother Nature is wonderful. So taking a walk outside would be ideal, but I don't know where you are, but the weather's starting to turn here. We're doing good, but we're going to turn probably in the next couple of weeks. Those are some things.
I want to almost pause you for a second, though, because I have a thought on, and I'm loving this movement and activity in nature, the activity piece. And thank you for all the different descriptions with that, because oftentimes, I think that individuals try to grab what they think works for somebody else, and they feel like it should work for them. They feel like they should find this joy out of crocheting or knitting or an adult coloring book or cooking. And they're always like using somebody else's tactic or joy and never truly sinking into or understanding what their true joy is coming from. And it takes us a while, if we've lost it completely, to refine it. You have to really seek it out. You might do 10 different activities before that one hits you where you go, oh yeah, I really like this. Like music, to me, I can lose myself in, where I can watch my best friend who kind of doesn't care. She can like hear the song and move on, where it's like, oh, it impacts us all so differently. So just thank you for breaking that down. And then my question for you, Teresa, is how do we attach, your visual helped, I believe, on this, but like attaching the importance of, yeah, I hear you. I know it's important to bring down my stress. I'll get to it. But then like going, I'm not going to sit here and watch nature. How do you combat your clients or your audiences to help them understand the significance?
Well, it is a journey. It's baby steps. You go with the lowest hanging fruit, what looks most appealing to you. And maybe right now, 10 minutes a day is just out of the question. And maybe 30 minutes of movement is out of the question. But start where you are. 10 minutes is better than none. 20 minutes. And it is about just setting that mindset to start looking for things, start talking to people. So a lot of times I'll get people that are like, I don't know what they're doing. And so I'll connect with, like, when you were a kid, what did you enjoy doing? What did you really, can you transfer that somehow to adulthood? If there's nothing there at the moment, then start asking people, what is it you like to do? Do you have a hobby that you really do? And just start. Because once you set the filter, the lens in your mind, I'm telling you, you're going to find things. And if you can just start a little bit, this is not down to science that I can say, for you, Lindsay, it's 12 minutes. For me, it's 8 minutes. And if we want to live the minutes that we have on this precious earth more fully, then we've got to work this time in. Because the moments then that we are doing our work or connecting with people that are important, we're just going to be more present and more our better selves. I believe that's a belief I have. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Again, thank you. The visuals really help tie that down, to know that I can bring back down, or it needs to be brought down, that we're not doing it naturally like we used to bring that stress response down. Like we actually have to be intentional about bringing it down, or else it just stays elevated. Is it really interesting? I think I knew that, but the way you said it made so much sense to me.
Another example I'll use is accelerating the car. The stress response is putting the accelerator down. Then you pull it back as you work through whatever that stress is. And then another thing comes along, it goes down, comes back up. But the accelerator doesn't ever really, with our days, get a chance to go to a full break rest position. When I'm working with audiences, I'll throw out the question, what do you think is going to happen to your car if it's revved up all day long, if it never has a break? Some people say run out of gas. Some people say break down. That's what we're doing to our body, slowly but surely. So, and you know what? I'm all for test run. You know yourself best. Do a 2-week pilot run and do this and see if you feel better. And if you're just thinking better, different energy, something changed about you, give it a try.
Yes. Thank you. I love that. Okay. Does that all fall into the first bucket, or did we kind of transfer into both at the moment? I interrupted you and you're about to go into, I think, part two.
No, no, that is, to me, I believe we need to have that, even if you start to change or able to understand how you can leverage stress. We have things. There's a train that runs down on River Drive, and if that whistle goes off, my stress levels go through, and if somebody says something, I'd like to say I don't take it personally, but sometimes I do, all these things, we just can't avoid it. There's stress regardless. That's the culture we live in, the lifestyles we live in. To me, this is a part. If you want to live a healthy life, that's part.
Yep. Agreed. Okay. And then we can use this stress that's just part of it for our good too. And I think any of our women listeners, our community going, yes, how can I empower myself more? Please tell me.
Okay. You probably heard about the good stress, which is a really good way to go. And a lot of people have not harnessed that. A lot of people haven't. So it's real simply, it's an appraisal of the situation. It's a couple things that happen. First, becoming aware, mindful that you are stressed. That has to happen if you're going to leverage stress. Okay. So you've got to take a moment throughout your day. And in general, you want to recommend you're taking some check-ins throughout the day to start to say, am I stressed? Okay. What am I stressed about? A couple things that happened. The first thing is just labeling, naming that you're stressed. That's a strong emotional feeling that you're experiencing, that you're labeling. And the research says that when we label a strong emotion, including stress, which is a fear emotion, that we switch from when we're in stress, when we're in a strong emotion, negative in particular, we're operating from the amygdala. It's a kidney bean portion of your brain in the center of your brain that lights up. And that's your reactionary part, your fight or flight. That all happens from there. It's believed to be an older part of our evolutionary brain. It's there. And it's a part that is quicker to respond than other parts of our brains. It's helped us survive. So, because it's reactionary. So when we have a strong emotion, it comes from there, that lights up, we know. When we actually put a label to the strong emotion, say anger, frustration, sadness, or stress, say the word stressed in our head, then we know that through research, it switches to the prefrontal cortex, a different part of our brain that is responsible for decision-making, empathy, logic, things like that. And I want that. I don't want to be reactionary or running or fighting. Just by recognizing and labeling, naming it, some people call it acknowledging, then you switch over and you open up being able to use better decision-making. Because when you're in the amygdala, when you're in a true stressed situation, that fight or flight, when that amygdala is lighting up, we say you're hypervigilant. We're in a way dampen down the prefrontal cortex. And there's a couple reasons for that. When you're in a true fear for your life situation, the prefrontal cortex actually takes up a lot of energy. I call it an energy sucking organ. It only weighs 2% of your body weight, but it uses 20% of your energy at rest. So your body is smart and says, I don't need that if I'm in a fight or flight kind of situation. So it turns it off or dampens it. So that's where the amygdala kind of takes over. But when we're in a hypervigilant, imagine that you're like downtown in a city. I don't want to give any city a bad rap, but just say you're downtown in a city late at night by yourself. It's dark. You see something move a half a block away. You're going to be in hypervigilant mode. You're going to be in that fight or flight, the amygdala. So, and what happens there is you're very focused on what's happening for your safety. And you're thinking, should I run for my life? Should I call 911? Should I hop in the car, take off? You're hypervigilant. So you're seeing everything as a threat in order to protect yourself. We don't want that happening during the day. We don't want to see everything as a threat. So we want to switch over to the prefrontal cortex just by taking the simple step of recognizing you're stressed, naming it as I'm stressed without judgment. Just, wow, I'm stressed. Recognizing that, you will switch over to amygdala. So that's the step one. And talk about good stress. We're saying we're stressed, and we're going to switch from seeing this as a threat to a challenge. So, and that actually, what we see is your body changes how it reacts. There's studies that show that instead of constricting your blood vessels, your arteries, you widen them, you dilate them, which means you're going to be able to pump more blood. It means you're going to be able to think clearly. You've got that prefrontal cortex, you've got the blood pumping. And the other cool thing, when you see things as a challenge, you see them as a growth, you see them as something that you can use in the future. Maybe you don't like it at all. Okay. It doesn't mean you like what you're going through, but you're like, I don't like this. I'm going to see this as an opportunity. I'm going to learn from it. I'm just going to work my way through this. Then you're recruiting all your body's processes here. And what I really love is that the research finds is that everything after this event or process that you're going through ends, it goes back to the foundational state. In a sense, we aren't requiring that kind of closing out that we just talked about. When you see it as a challenge versus a threat, and actually, I'm going to grow from this, I'm going to learn from this, that will do a lot for your stress response. So that's what's happened, what we've seen studies in the last 10, 20 years. And a lot of people talk about good stress. So that's great. Stress is enhancing is another kind of, it goes a step further and looks at your assumptions, your mindset a little more deeply. Are you ready for this?
Yes. Yeah. I'm like absorbing. I'm like, this opportunity to learn and grow is highlighting off the page for me. And now we get to take it a step further. Go.
And maybe backing up to kind of thinking about one easy way of identifying some of these things, I call it the WW, the wish or want. If you can pause and ask yourself, what is it I wish was different or want differently? Or is there something? I'm not encouraging that you like find something you wish was different. I'm just saying, if you catch yourself saying, I wish they would respond differently. I wish my work would do this. I want this to happen. I want them to do this. If you are ruminating on that, focusing on that, that's creating stress. Internal, external. Those are the things where you stop and go, okay, I'm really wishing this was different, but I've done everything I can do now. I need to accept it. And how can I grow from it? How can I learn from it?
I literally just had this conversation. If we can use this as an example, real life example of wishing and wanting with a client this morning, because just those frustrations that happen within the household of dishes aren't getting done by somebody else or laundry isn't getting done by somebody else, that it seems very innocent to be frustrated and kind of ruminating over. And that's where I'm seeing this. I wish they'd do this. I want them to do this, that it is like building in them and that it is connected to our whole health goal because it ripples into all of these other areas. Does that resonate with you too?
Yeah. Yes. And we can use as example going into this next stress is enhancing. Stress is enhancing. Leah Crum is the researcher behind this, and she's done a handful of really great studies to show what's happening here. She has a 3-step way to really utilize fully your stress response. And so the first one is the same as we just did. It's labeling, naming, saying I'm stressed, switching that from the amygdala over to using more of your prefrontal cortex. Also, it helps to kind of go through a quick, what am I doing behaviorally, emotionally, what is the feelings, and then physiologically, what is happening? So those kind of different aspects. So behaviorally, what am I doing? Am I going on my phone, avoiding things? Am I feeling like I want to yell? Did I yell? I've had 4 kids. Are you seeking out certain foods? a glass of wine, 2, 3, behaviorally, what is happening there? So just being non-judgmental. Okay, I had an extra glass of wine. Okay. And then looking at, what is it I'm feeling? I'm stressed and I'm feeling frustrated, sad, anger, physiologically. Am I feeling like my heart is in a clump? Am I feeling a stomach ache? Am I feeling a headache? Am I feeling my heart racing? Am I, what is going on? Maybe nothing, because sometimes stress is invisible. Sometimes it's hard to pick up on. That really helps to just go through and no judgment, just understand those 3 categories. Leah Crum, she says, welcome the stress. I like to say thank the stress. I'm very about gratitude, and you'll see why. And it's not that you're thankful that you had whatever event or whatever is happening. But in the second step, the key is to recognize that you only have stress when you care about something. You only have stress when it's something that is changing what you really care about. Ask yourself, wow, I am stressed because I really care about my kids, about, being the best mom I can. I know it's all moms out there. We're trying our best. What is it? It might need to dig a little bit. If you're not agreeing with the boss, you're probably stressed not just because you want to be liked by the boss. You're probably stressed because you care about your work. You want to bring income home, and maybe even you believe you have contribution to make that's being blocked by your boss. Getting to what it is you really care about there. Thank you. I now realize that I care about this, and it's no judgment. It might be you want to succeed, be successful, achievement. It's okay. Okay. These are things that probably were wired a long time ago, and they're part of us. No judgment. So that's the second stage is understanding what it is it's telling you. The stress is really telling you that there's something you care about there. So, and then the third step when you're doing the stress enhancing a little more in depth is kind of looking at utilizing the stress, going back to, okay, now that I understand what I care about, how can I use this situation, what's going on, to just further my goal? Because in step 2, my goal is being a better mom, is being there for my kids, connecting with my kids. Unfortunately, what happens in a lot of cases is with stress, we either hide, freeze, or react, which is not helping our goal in step 2. As a mother, we want to, if things are getting frustrating, we want to scream. Okay. I'm not saying we do, but we got that urge. So we got the urge to say something to the kids too. I get that urge all the time and bite my tongue, because usually what wants to come out first is maybe not the most helpful. And when I step back and say, I really want to connect with my kids, and by me telling them what they're doing wrong is not going to connect with them. Now, I might be right in the end in certain aspect, but I haven't connected with them. And that's more important to me, to connect with them, allow them the space to grow. I know it's very hard, and there's no right or wrong. This is all about connecting with what's important and then saying, how can I use this stress to further those goals? Let me non-judgmentally look at my behaviors and look at what would be a better behavior in this situation, or better thoughts, or just better actions overall. What do I want to do? If it's for the job, then we want to look at, how can I learn to get along with the boss, but what are other ways that I can show my contributions? So often the stress gets in the way of actually furthering what is important to us.
Yes, productive stress. I feel like our kids' teachers just said that there should be a productive stress in school, where it's talking to you, saying, like, if the things are too easy, we're not learning, we're not growing. But if we're being pushed enough where the stress is for our own good, then we're listening and we're taking action and we're furthering ourselves. And then I think what you're saying is that we can hit this other point if we're not listening, if we're not building the insight, that then our stress is not productive. It's just stays high. It's detrimental to our health. And so it really is our body talking to us. And are we listening? I'm going to give you a huge challenge here, Teresa, is can you summarize if our listeners were like, okay, I'm hearing this, but I just need it chunked back down. Can you give us a little Cliff Notes version of everything we just talked about?
Yeah. The number one, become aware that you're stressed. Label, name it. Number two, what is it telling me that I care about? I'm thankful that I'm recognizing that this is a signal to me that there's something going a little awry that I care about. And the third thing is, let me step back and how can I pursue this goal that I care about in a constructive way, a productive way. That's it.
So good. Well done. Truly. I think it goes from feeling like it's an easy topic, it's stress, to a way complicated topic when we pick it all apart, and then to like bring it back together in this whole picture of importance. Just again, thank you for bringing that and highlighting that for our audience today. And if anyone's listening going, I need you to speak over my work environment or my students, where's the best place for you to be found?
Well, go to my website, drteresapangan.com, and I'd love to present at your next event or workshop or Zoom meeting. And I also have a course that I do just helping you integrate some of these important principles for living a richer life starting in 2024.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that. We'll bring you back on and do a little deeper dive on that. And since Teresa has just beautifully laid the groundwork for today, we're going to close out with the idea that you're coming on back on for part number 2. And we're going to carry some of this mindset thinking over into nutrition and fitness. But for today, thank you so much for your time and wisdom. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.